Good morning, Venters. I hope you guys are having a good day. So check this out. Some people that are new to the channel might be wondering why it's 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon here in Arizona and why I always wish people good morning. Well, the reason I wish people good morning is because one of the biggest bits of advice I can give you if you're thinking about starting a walking routine is to actually start it first thing in the morning. Most of us head off to work around 7 to get to work around 8, right? And then we have our full 7 or 8 hour day or however long we're at work. And by the time you get home, I'm sure many of you realize that you're just mentally and physically drained. And so when you're at your weakest moment at the end of the day and all you want to do is go home and visit with the family and eat something, a lot of times it can be really difficult to motivate ourselves at our weakest times like that. So right in the morning, a lot of times the last thing we want to do is get started on work, right? So that's actually a situation where your walk can actually help you slow time down. If you slow time down by a little bit before you go to work, it doesn't make you feel like you're rushing off to work so fast in the morning. On top of that, if you're in a performance-based job, where maybe you have goals and metrics and, maybe you have to make a little extra commission or bonuses on your check, one of the best things you can do is try to arrive at work fully awake. A lot of times people start to wake up once they get to work and have that first or second cup of coffee, right? But if you can get used to taking a half-hour walk before you get in your car and head off to work, you'll end up finding that it probably will actually help your performance. Now, if you suck at your job, there's no walk in the world that's going to make you no longer suck at your job. But if your job is one of those where for whatever reason you feel like you're falling a little bit behind each day, this might actually be a great way to perk yourself back up. So you might be asking yourself, okay, well, Jesse, how come you're not walking in the morning? Well, in the summertime, when it gets really hot out, I actually do walk in the morning. And a lot of times on the weekend, I will walk in the morning. But again, lately, over the past 6 months or so, I've predominantly been walking after work, mainly because the weather's nice. Another thing that you can do now that we're heading into month number 2, or soon going to be heading into month number 2, is you can actually go ahead and start to do another walk at your lunch period. Or if you do walk in the morning, why not try to talk yourself into taking another walk right when you get home from work? Now, people might be saying, Jesse, I'm going to do one or the other, and that's fine if you want to do one or the other. But the point is, if you do both, a walk in the morning and after work, that's when you're really going to be burning calories all around the clock. By the way, you might just find that you love walking so much that you might not even care if it has anything to do with gaining or losing weight. Sometimes people start a walking routine because they want to lose a couple pounds, which is great. But when you also realize what it can do to uplift your spirits and help you jump into your think tank and come up with solutions to some of your problems that we all deal with. Guys, everybody deals with financial woes, too many bills, high interest credit cards. Those are things that are fun problems to tackle when you're on your walk. Today, guys, it is 67 degrees with a little bit of a breeze, borderline light wind, and literally feels like air conditioning out here to me. Feels absolutely wonderful. If you could just have Arizona's winter weather for a month or two, there would be a piece of you that would want to move to Arizona. The only problem with the Arizona winter weather is it gives you a false belief that we have wonderful weather the whole year round. When it starts to hit 115 degrees outside, you'll wish you weren't in Arizona. I've only been walking with you guys here for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I already feel a little bit of the stress from my day kind of alleviating itself and leaving my body. The reason I say that is this was one of those days, and we all have these, where I just felt like work kind of piled up on me, where all of a sudden you're having conversations, but it's one of those conversations where every 3 or 4 seconds someone else is giving you a call. So you kind of feel like you're going from one item at work to another, and you're in one of these spots where just the stress, just you're not having any time to decompress. And that happens to all of us. The worst thing that you can do, in my opinion, is end up going home and taking out that stress on your family. One of the best things you can do is go take a walk, and pretty soon you'll realize, I don't even remember what I was stressed about anymore. Does anyone else notice that? When you're on your walk, pretty soon you just kind of enjoy seeing landmarks go past you as you're walking. You know, I just love looking back every now and then and saying, God, look how far we've come. It's awesome. You get a real sense of accomplishment with walking, or at least I do. Remember, every half hour we walk burns about 150 calories. If you're taking more of a laid back, relaxed walk, well, maybe you're burning a little bit closer to 100 calories, right? And then, of course, you can find a happy middle ground somewhere in there. So let's talk about something. You know, the video that I put up the other day was talking about people that were potentially pulling a little fraud when it comes to food stamps and stuff. And obviously, hey, how's it going? Obviously, if you're in a tough pinch financially, you'd like to think that you can reach out and get some assistance in the form of food stamps. But the problem is some people are doing so well and have every aspect of the food stamps and assistance game down, to the point where it really makes it difficult for those people to want to go back to work. So here's my first question of the day for you guys. Do you guys think that we need to fix something up in that system? Because if I had Section 8 housing where they paid for my housing, and then I had food stamps assistance, so they're paying for my food, and then you have some sort of cash assistance, so they're giving you money on top, well, pretty soon you've got the same bills and stuff that people that are working have. And you might say, well, yeah, what's wrong with that? Well, I suppose on the surface level, there's nothing wrong with that. But most people have to equate some work time into that to be able to earn their money. And if all of a sudden you go up to people and you say, hey, why don't you go out and see if you can gain employment? So they go out and get interviews for jobs. But then imagine taking a job where you're going to have to be away from your family, working 35 or 40 hours a week, right? And then it ends up equating to a loss, because now you lose your housing assistance, you lose your food stamps, and you lose your cash assistance. You're creating a situation where people are actually getting addicted to the assistance. Now, I understand they're making some changes. I understand that they're going to make it where I guess you only have 2 years for Section 8 housing, which in and of itself is probably going to be problematic, because you're going to equate to a situation where people pay their rent while they're on public assistance, and then after that runs out, people are probably going to get evicted. And I don't know if that's good for them or bad for them. It's probably bad for them, right, if you get evicted. But then think about the landlords that are getting those Section 8 payments for their property. What do you do when all of a sudden that Section 8 runs out? They're probably going to have to be evicting a lot of these families that were dependent on that. So yes, I love the fact that we as a society have safeguards for people. The problem is that it's just human nature that whenever there's something that you can take advantage of, people seem to go out of their way to find every loophole and every advantage they can, take, and then they do it. Some of these comments that I was reading where people are saying, hey, I have to work 40 hours a week and so does my husband, and we've got 2 kids. We can't qualify for food stamps. We can't qualify for anything. And before you know it, they're absolutely broke, even though they're combined, working 80 hours a week. That would be hard to swallow for a lot of families. By the way, here's a true story, Mala and Sean, because I know you guys occasionally like to hear the real story. When I was in 6th and 7th grade, my mother moved us from Phoenix to Mesa. She didn't have a job, so she didn't have a dollar to her name, but what she did have was a couple of friends that knew how to sign up for the various programs. So at the time, she signed up for welfare and food stamps, plus Section 8, and I think it was called AFDC and food stamps. I forget how it all entailed, but basically, it equated to our rent in this little townhome we had being paid. She got food stamps, so we had food in our stomach, right? And then she got a little welfare assistance too, so she had a little bit of cash. And I remember even back then, this is literally when I was like 11 and 12 and 13 years old, I can remember even back then, people would urge her to go out and try to find a job. But I can remember back then, she kind of got into this habit of wanting to go extended periods of time without working. So even though I didn't know the ins and outs of it back then, and I still don't, I knew enough from a little child's point of view to know that my mom did better by not working. And therein lies the problem. I think that's kind of the problem that I have with these different injectable medications for weight loss. You're going to get to the point where instead of working out and doing things the right way, I think people are going to start just paying for their injectable and kind of taking the easy way out, even though there's nothing easy about it. Have you ever noticed in life, people that do take the easy way out, they always tell you it's not the easy way out. It's like, well, wait a minute. It actually is a little bit easier to not eat food if you're taking a medication that makes you not crave food. You know, I think sometimes in this world we've gotten to a point where we don't like any things that create discomfort. Let's be honest, when you're telling yourself, I have plenty of money to afford a cupcake, but I'm going to make a choice not to take it, there's a little discomfort there. But you know what I do is I weigh the pros and cons. There might be discomfort when it comes to eating well or choosing to ignore the sweets, but if this equates to you avoiding a heart attack or stroke, take the discomfort. You know, I bet you there's a million people that a couple of days after they had a heart attack or stroke, I bet you there's a million people that would say, gosh, if I could go back, I wouldn't have eaten those cupcakes. I wouldn't have eaten those second and third helpings of cookies and ding-dongs, right? Sometimes, in retrospect, everything seems easy, right? It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. But when you're going through it and you have a donut right in your face, it's really easy to just choose the easy way out and take the donut. So again, you and I can't necessarily afford injectable medication that takes away our hunger. But there is one advantage that the walk has. It's very rare that I'm on a walk and I start thinking about food. Have you ever noticed that? Next time you're on a walk, try to think about food. You'll think of it more in a calculated way, like, hey, this food's good for me, these foods aren't. And you'll be able to strategize about what you want to buy the next time you go to the grocery store. What you won't do is you won't start saying, God, that apple pie sounds good. Golly, that chocolate pudding, I can't wait till I can get some. For some reason, when you're walking, you don't really think about that. So let's say you're 350 pounds and all you do all day is think about eating bad foods. God, I would recommend that person take 3 or 4 walks a day. Get your mind on something other than food. And I'm telling you, maybe you venters can pipe in on this. When you're walking, are you thinking about food very often? Or are you thinking about how nice one neighbor's front yard looks? And wow, that's a nice color paint job on that car. You think about weird things that you normally don't. But again, if you're looking to kind of get over the cravings, God, your walk is the best weapon you can have. If you are overweight, hear my words, because these are the most important part of my strategy when it comes to walking. When we were little, if you're in my age group, your 40s or your 50s, when we were little, we predominantly walked to school Monday through Friday, walk there, walk home afterwards, right? Most of us during our 2 recess periods would go outside and play touch football or basketball or 2-square, some sort of physical activity. Most of us at lunch would eat real quick and then go outside and play sports with people. And so what we had was a situation where throughout the 8-hour day, we were active for a good hour and a half, maybe even more, out of that entire day. Now, we sit in the office for 8 hours in a chair, right? And they even tell us that sitting is like the new version of smoking. It's absolutely horrible for you. So, if you can take that walk in the morning around your neighborhood before you get in your car, and if you can take that walk after you get home, and after you finish eating your lunch, if you can take a quick walk around the office or around the building where you work, all of a sudden, you're kind of mimicking the schedule of kids, of students. And that's why they always say that back in the day, I was high school skinny. Back in the day, we had a fast metabolism. What if there is no such thing as a metabolism? What if the reason kids are skinny is because instead of eating all day, they're learning math, and they're learning reading, and they're learning writing. And in between their lessons, they're going out and they're playing sports, and they're playing games, and they're walking and being active. Meanwhile, your brain's not stimulated because you're doing the same repetitive thing at your job every single day. You're eating food every single day because God forbid you skip a meal, right? And you're being inactive. All we have to do is change our mindset. If we start walking every single day, before you know it, we're going to get back to the way we used to feel when we were young. I think sometimes people look at exercise as a punishment. I don't want to walk 3 hours or 3 miles a day, Jesse. That's a punishment. Well, Bob, I think the real punishment is when you do get that heart attack at age 40, when you do have that stroke when you're age 60. What if we could have a bona fide way of avoiding that? Oh yeah, we do. It's called a daily walk. The problem with walking is people want too much from it. They want to be able to lose 30 pounds in a week. Guys, that's never going to happen. They want it to be something fun. Well, I think walking is fun because it's laid back and relaxing, and you can just kind of zombie out while you're walking. That's fun for a person with a lot of stress. If you have a lot of stress, don't you think just having a time to yourself where you don't stress out very much, doesn't that sound like fun? Jesse, what's something I can do if I'm walking every day with you, I'm avoiding sugar, and I'm drinking water already? What's something else we can do to step it up? I'm a big fan of calisthenics. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a football player named Herschel Walker. He played a long time ago, but he always swore up and down that he would do 1,000 push-ups a day, and he did it for just a long time. He might be doing push-ups even now to this day. And I'm not saying that you want to do 1,000 push-ups a day, but heck, what if you just started with 15 or 20 push-ups a day? That'll add a little bit of muscle tone as you're losing weight. I think it's a great idea. I think you should contemplate it. And if you've been thinking about getting a gym membership and you've been walking for the last 300 days, heck, why not invest $10 a month in yourself and go find yourself a gym membership? Start lifting some weights. That's the key. You don't want to ever just get used to something. Hey, I take a 30-minute walk every day. What's it do for you? Nothing. I just take it. Don't get like that. Challenge yourself. You know, if you've been thinking about doing a softball league or a basketball league at the church or something, go for it. If you've been walking a long time, you're probably healthier now than you were this time last year. Sometimes I wonder, because I drink a lot of bottled water, I'm sure many of you guys do too. One of the first bottled waters was Evian, remember? And people would say, you know, Evian backwards spells naive. Because back when they came out with bottled water, people didn't think it would ever catch on, because why in the heck would you pay for a bottle of water when you can get it from your tap for free? So somewhere along the lines, we started talking ourselves into the idea that tap water was disgusting, and now we all pay for bottled water. I wonder how much money we would all have if we would have just stuck with tap water. Now, I know some of you are saying, I don't buy bottled water, Jesse. I have a Brita filtration system. Well, that's great. That's great. I happen to think filtered water tastes a little weird myself. I kind of like the bottled stuff. But anyway, remember, I just remember for about 5 or 6 years, there was a big battle. You might not remember this, but I'm telling you, it's true. And people actually made fun of people that purchased bottled water. Because again, it was one of those things that it's like, what are you thinking? You're wasting money on something that's free. But I'd be willing to bet, out of all of us listening to my voice, I'd be willing to bet you all take bottled water now. I am kind of bummed out that football season is over. Every time football season is over, it's just one of those things where it's like, what the heck am I going to do on Sundays now? You get used to watching the games. And now they're gone. And yes, I know they have the UFL and all these other sports leagues, but it's hard to get interested in a football game when there's nobody in this seat. You ever watch these football leagues where there's no one in the stadium? Makes it look kind of sad, you know? The other day I was talking about my boring walk, and Terry the Terrify said, "You're not boring." Thank you, Terry. Listen, sometimes boring walks are actually the best. So remember, when you're out walking, it's not so much about that it's the funnest thing in the world. It's more about the fact that whenever you're stressing, which, let's face it, we all stress way too much nowadays, the walk helps you decompress, come back to earth, realize that your problems aren't world-shattering like you make them out to be. And we're going to repeat the process tomorrow. So I hope you walk for an extra 20 minutes today. Make today that day that you keep going. And I'll see you tomorrow, friends.